The last drug we are going to discuss that has medications to treat the symptoms is a condition called multiple sclerosis, or MS. There's quite a few facts about MS, and you can probably see them easier on your slide when you bring up the PowerPoints on your computer. You can read these different facts. MS is an autoimmune disease that causes the body's immune system to turn on itself, and it attacks the myelin in the brain. Myelin is fatty tissue that surrounds the neurons and protects them, kind of like the insulation on a wire. And when the myelin is attacked, then the nerves become exposed and they don't carry signals properly. Unfortunately, there is no cure for multiple sclerosis. The only thing we can do is try to keep the symptoms under control. MS tends to flare up and then go into remission. So you can have what's known as remitting, relapsing MS, where some symptoms are worse than others. On page 179, we see the common early symptoms that you're going to see when somebody has MS. And you can see on page 178, figure 9.6 kind of shows what the cell looks like with the different neurons and what the myelin sheath should look like. And they kind of remind me of like if you took a wire and put a pool noodle over it. So that sort of protects that nerve. But then if you were to cut sections out of that pool noodle, you would see that that wire is exposed and no longer protected. For a long time, the only thing they could really do with MS was to give anti-inflammatories like steroids. And ultimately, because of the severe side effects that steroids can cause, it limited the extent to which those could be used for MS. They still might be used in lower dosages, but they're not used like they used to be. Here's some more signs and symptoms of MS, so I'll let you look at that on the PowerPoint up on your screen. You'll be able to read that easier. We've got a few drugs for multiple sclerosis, and these are listed on page 180. We've got three categories. So we have BRMs, or biological response modifiers. What these do is they kind of modify the patient's immune response. With it being an autoimmune condition, the patient's own immune system just turns on itself and it attacks the central nervous system and the myelin in the nerves. So what BRMs do is to try to tone down that immune response. That helps decrease inflammation, and hopefully it can slow down disease progression. MS is not fatal per se. It just tends to progress over a period of time. But sometimes people can live with it for years and then end up dying of something completely different. But medications like this can hopefully increase the periods of remission. There are 2 drugs that are given by sub-Q injection, 2 that are oral preparations. One medication is a beta interferon, and it goes under several names, but we'll refer to it as Avonex here. And then there's some others, Gilenya, Aubagio, Suboxone. There's several, but beta interferon is usually one of the most common drugs that is given to suppress that immune system action that makes the body turn on itself. Side effects can be headache, There can be some local reactions if it's injected. Flu-like symptoms, the body aches and just feeling sick. The person can end up with peripheral neuropathy, so their hands and feet can feel numb and tingly. Their liver enzymes can elevate, heart rate can slow, and the hair can thin. Generally speaking, people who have MS are going to have a neurologist that they see, somebody who specializes in MS and can help them manage the medications and the side and adverse effects. Another category of drug for MS are the monoclonal antibodies. These are listed in the middle of page 180 and are prototype drug. Alemtuzumab or Lemtrada. Occasionally that gets advertised on TV for autoimmune issues. But the monoclonal antibodies attack and inactivate lymphocytes that are triggered when that immune system reaction happens. So there's going to be an exacerbation of the immune system reaction against the myelin. The body will produce cytokines and other chemicals, including white blood cells, that try to attack that myelin. And so these monoclonal antibodies will try to stop those chemicals, those immune system chemicals, from attacking the patient's nerves. These drugs can be given either IV or subcutaneously. There's a couple of others here too besides Lemtrada. There's Zenbrida, Tisabril, Ocrevus, but all of these function to provide antibodies that'll attack these inflammatory triggers. Side and adverse effects: increase in infection risk. This lowers the effectiveness of the immune system, so the person can get sick easily. They can have increased allergic reactions to this drug because it messes with their immune system. Flu-like symptoms. If they have IV infusion, they can have some site reactions, as well as at the sub-Q site. Back pain, low blood pressure, edema. The biggest thing to remember is people taking these particular antibodies need to avoid crowds, and they need to stay away from people who are sick. So these are folks who would be most at risk in a pandemic like we're experiencing now. If they go out and they're exposed to somebody, because their immune system's already suppressed, they can end up getting sick more easily. If a patient begins taking Lemtrada, they need to just take that and not any other kind of monoclonal antibody, just one at a time. Once again, this patient's going to be under the care of a MS specialist, like a neurologist.